right, welcome back. We're here, Ezra and Brian, hanging out in the backyard, kicking back and relaxing because it's the August long weekend. Maybe you call it Simcoe Day if you're in Toronto, or Bytown Day, I don't know, Colonel By Day in Ottawa. What's it called out in Alberta, Ezra? Day off?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I just call it Monday.
All right, so
Up at the crack of 10, as usual.
We're looking at some of the best episodes of Source in the Byline throughout the summer. And Ezra, this had to be one of my favorite stories. Justin Trudeau actually being asked a real question and then freaking out.
I use the phrase media party, Brian, to describe the consensus media that are generally left of center, generally go soft on guys like Trudeau, tough on guys like Harper. And it's not just me who believes that the media party exists. Justin Trudeau evidently does, because when he was actually asked an extremely rare, tough question by the media party, he assumed it was coming from us. Here, the video will explain. So a funny thing happened on Parliament Hill today. Someone asked Justin Trudeau a real question about a real news subject. That normally doesn't happen. He's normally asked questions like, Justin, all the cool reporters are on a first name basis with him. Justin, how does it feel to be so really ridiculously good looking? Or, Justin, how do you feel about Stephen Harper being really ridiculously mean to you? That's how it goes. And then after that hard work is done, Trudeau poses with his fans, sorry, I mean the media party, and they take pictures with each other for their Facebook pages, and Trudeau signs some autographs for the reporters. If things get tough, Trudeau does a little yoga, and that's enough to keep the media party distracted for a day. So it was quite a shock for Trudeau to be asked a serious question today that wasn't about hair products. And he didn't like it much. Here, take a listen.
Is there wisdom in talking to the Taliban? The U.S. is engaging the Taliban. My people are asking me to ask that to you,
yes,
sir.
Yes, your Sun News people, I know.
Sir, that's my request.
There we go.
I know, it was shocking to me too. A real question for Trudeau about a real subject. Should the Allies in Afghanistan negotiate with the Taliban, which is a terrorist group, the terrorist group we have been fighting over there for more than 10 years, the terrorists who have killed so many of our Canadian troops? Why did we bother to go to fight them if we're now going to negotiate giving the country back to them? Definitely not the kind of question the CBC normally asks Trudeau, so I don't blame Trudeau for being so chippy and irritated, and I don't blame him for assuming that the question came from us at the Sun, as opposed to the lickspittles in the media party. But this time it really was the CBC. Now, I'd stop there, but I want to show you his actual answer once he recovered from his shock of a real question from the CBC. Here's his answer.
Mr. Trudeau, is there wisdom to talking to the Taliban, sir? Would you answer that, please? Is there wisdom in talking to the Taliban? The U.S. is engaging the Taliban. My people are asking me to ask that to you, sir.
Yes, your Sun News people, I know.
Sir, that's my request.
There we go. I think we need to make sure that we are engaging constructively around the world. I believe in diplomacy. I believe in conversations. But I also believe that Canada's security needs to be first and foremost, and we have to make sure that we are not weakening. I'm pleased that the G8 came forward with a resolution that said we will not we will not pay ransoms to terrorists. And we need to make sure that we are moving forward in ways that is going to keep Canada safe and keep Canadians safe and reduce conflict and violence and human rights atrocities around the world.
See, that's why the shiny pony hates being asked about things other than his hair, because he's got no clue. The Taliban in Afghanistan, he gave some answer, I think, about Syria or Canada. I'm not sure. Those are different countries. Syria and Afghanistan are about 1,000 miles away. Trudeau does a lot of this, actually. He simply refuses to answer tough questions from the Sun, and he can usually count on media party reporters not to follow up. I mean, remember a few months ago when we started asking him questions about his speaking fees from charities? He simply stonewalled us because we were with the Sun. Listen.
I am happy that I have set that new bar for transparency. I am happy that I always followed all the Ethics Commissioner's rules, and I have said everything I'm going to say on that particular issue.
Of course, he later answered other questions, but back then you can see he doesn't answer our real questions, and he can count on the media party most of the time from not asking those same questions. The media party can certainly be snippy. I mean, take this question that the CBC asked of Stephen Harper at the G8 summit in Ireland just yesterday, huge summit. very important, big issues. Stephen Harper actually taking a surprising leadership role in boxing in Vladimir Putin on the issue of Syria. But here's what the CBC asks. They can be snippy.
You're now returning to an Ottawa where there's a bit of an interesting political atmosphere where members of your staff have been trying to leak anonymously to reporters documents related to Justin Trudeau's speaking fees and telling those reporters, and this is a quote, that it's always wrong to take money from a charity. First, do you endorse these activities by your staff? And second, do you agree that it is always wrong for somebody to work for a charity for money?
Yeah, I actually really like Terry Milewski of the CBC. It was a weird question to ask at the G8, but that's not my point. My point is, have you ever heard Milewski ask a loaded question like that to Justin Trudeau? And Post Media, which is a part-time member of the media party, well, they dutifully followed up on Milewski's question. Why is the Prime Minister running off to the G8 meeting in Europe? It must be to hide from our tough questions about them giving out information about Trudeau's, I don't know. Look, Justin Trudeau is in a massive conflict of interest. As an MP, in fact, since he first declared his Liberal candidacy, he has billed groups $966,500 to give private speeches, up to 20 grand a pop, including to charities. That's outrageous. But the media has avoided answering those questions or asking those questions as best they can. The media party is pretty good at being willfully blind to questions of conflict of interest in the Liberal Party. Just today, for example, Bob Rae resigned as the Liberal MP from Toronto. He resigned, and his resignation will force an enormously expensive by-election in Toronto, not because of bad health or even to seek another public office. Bob Rae resigned to go to work full-time to represent Ontario Indian bands, to wring more money out of the government of Ontario and out of mining companies. He first expressed interest in working for these groups nearly 6 months ago, right in the middle of the Attawapiskat scandal. He said he wanted to work for the Indian bands, taking cash from them to sue and negotiate against the government of Ontario and mining companies while staying on as an MP. Seriously, being a Liberal, he had no problem with taking taxpayers' money to represent the public interest, while also at the same time taking private Indian band money to sue the government, all the while making public statements about Indian affairs. He actually wrote to the ethics commissioner asking for her permission to set up a little business on the side about all these things while being an MP. Now, this was not a secret. But other than on this show, when we did a whole expose on it back in January, did you ever hear about this? About Bob Rae's plans? Of course not, because the media party had no problem with it. Just like they have no problem with Justin Trudeau renting himself out by the hour to anyone with 20 grand. Now, at least I'll give Bob Rae credit for this. Even though he's forcing a costly by-election on the country, that's better than if he were to continue in his conflict and represent Indian bands for cash while pretending to represent all of us in Parliament. Bob Rae has a higher ethical standard than the media party, which had no problem with it, and he has a higher ethical standard with Justin Trudeau, who still says he did nothing wrong by taking close to $1 million on the side as a politician. Why? Why the collusion between the Liberals and the media party? Well, partly because journalists tend to be left of center, partly because the culture on Parliament Hill punishes anyone who doesn't go along with the groupthink. I mean, seriously, you should follow the press gallery on Twitter. You can watch them work out their official lines in real time. You can watch the subtle discipline of peer pressure as they all come up with their official spin. It's amazing. Another reason is that the media is so dominated by the CBC. It's literally bigger than all private news media combined in Canada. And their government identity, their big government, big spending politics seeps into the whole parliamentary press gallery. I don't know what the reason is that the media party is so left-wing, but it's not just the left-wingness, it's the sameness, the groupthink. Here's a charter member of the media party, the old wise man of the media party, explaining how it happened to him, how he caught a case of Trudeau mania.
I got to meet many members of the cabinet, started having dinner with them, going to parties with them. My whole network of friendships were all Trudeau's cabinet ministers and eventually Trudeau himself. I am aware that I compromised myself. I got so I was learning so many things that I couldn't use on the air because I'd learned them at a party with ministers. They have to know that your friendship will be trumped by your job as a reporter every time, if it has to be.
That's just the rule.
And that's the rule. And they need to know that. So it's always a limit on friendship. And it's a limit I didn't put on my relationship with Trudeau and should have.
He got swept up in Trudeau mania. He fell in love, just like so many reporters are today. I mean, do you really think that these two media party reporters, Althea Raj and Paul Wells would decline a private invitation to go to a party or canoeing with Justin Trudeau, just like Craig Oliver went canoeing with Pierre Trudeau. Paul Wells has accepted private invitations in the past to go hang out at the country cottage of Scott Bryson, a senior Liberal MP, so we know he really does put the party in media party. Now, I'm not picking on Althea and Paul. They're just, dumb enough to memorialize their love affair with Trudeau in a snapshot. Most of them don't publicize it. Okay, back to the news of the day. And I don't mean Trudeau insulting the CBC by calling them the Sun because they asked a real question. I don't mean Bob Rae quitting one public sector job to take another job at a higher rate of pay with more government money. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Trudeau's speaking fees. You see, instead of actually doing investigative journalism into Trudeau's speaking circuit, the media party are doing spin for him. Take Glenn McGregor. He was the hand-picked media party hack that the Liberals first disclosed Trudeau's massive speaking contracts to proactively, in the hope that he'd get the news out there as gently as possible, let the air out of the balloon. And he did that back in February. McGregor was happy to publish it without any tough questions about, say, the ethics of billing charities 20 grand for a speech, or the ethics of taking money from groups that also lobbied Trudeau on Parliament Hill in his capacity as MP. McGregor is a reliable media party lieutenant. So in the past few days, as that beautifully packaged spin job he did for Trudeau back in February started to unravel, what did McGregor do? Did he investigate any of these questions that he ignored back then? Did he do some digging? Maybe ask the Rotary Club of Etobicoke, the one that spent $10,000 out of an annual charity budget of less than 80 grand on half an hour of a speech from Trudeau. Did he ask them maybe if that was a smart idea? No. He went to work trying to do distraction for Trudeau. He dug up a couple of obscure conservative backbench senators who have in the past given a speech or two for pay. Now, that's wrong for them to do. I understand that one of them, a former hockey star, actually charged $2,000 for a speech once or something. That's McGregor's focus, not on the man who wants to be prime minister who took $1 million. He's old reliable, that Glenn McGregor, isn't he? The only digging that he and the rest of the media party did on Trudeau's speaking fees are digging to try to find evidence of conservative ties in the charities that want their money back, to show that the story really isn't about Trudeau pocketing their money. It's that Tories are complaining about it. And they found one woman on a charities board who is a Tory, so they were happy to let Trudeau off the hook for taking 20 grand from that charity and almost $1 million from other groups because someone on that charity was a conservative. That's media party logic. That's what they call investigative journalism. Okay, look, I'm not a real reporter, never went to journalism school, never joined the media party, but I guess I know how to use Google, right? And I thought I'd try to answer the question that's been nagging at me for months. Who the hell would actually pay to hear a politician speak? Well, we know the answer for a lot of these folks. Rich lobbyists would love to pay. And unlike just giving cash to a politician in a brown envelope as a bribe, it's completely legal for lobbyists to give 20 grand to the man who wants to be the next prime minister if you call it a speech. So we know why banks and media companies and big labor unions pay Justin Trudeau. We know that. But what about real charities? I mean, why on earth would a real charity that was supposed to do something, charitable with its money, instead give that money to a politician? That's what I don't understand. The media party is focused on the political stripes of the one woman on one board of one charity who had the temerity to ask Trudeau to give the money back. Well, what about all those charities and nonprofits who are absolutely saying they don't want Trudeau to give the money back, who are happy to give it to him? What kind of thinking is that? Just to choose one nonprofit, why would the Toronto Board of Trade hire Justin Trudeau to speak? Was it because their vice president and chief of operations was Grant Humes, who went on to be a Liberal candidate, who actually campaigned with Trudeau later? Was a little bit of Liberal back scratching there. How about the University of Ottawa? Trudeau spoke at the U of O, a Liberal hothouse that also appointed Alan Rock as their president around the same time. Is that a coincidence? Or Queen's University, their chancellor, when they hired Trudeau to speak there, was David Dodge, Jean Chrétien's choice to be the governor of the Bank of Canada. Is that a Liberal connection or coincidence? The learning partnership of one of those clients that Trudeau spoke to has on its advisory board Bernard Shapiro, another Paul Martin appointee. Or then there's this one. This is the worst of them, I think. Children of Hope. It's a charity. They collect money for orphans. Seriously, orphans. But they thought they'd give $10,000 of that money to Trudeau for a speech instead, literally instead of using that money for orphans. Why? Did that have anything to do with former Liberal MP Mark Holland, who's the senior advisor to this charity? Yeah, of course, a ton of Trudeau's cash grabs were with teachers unions, school boards, when the current Liberal Premier of Ontario, Kathleen Wynne, was Education Minister. Trudeau also received rich speeches from Ontario's own government, the Ministry of Community and Social Services and the Ministry of Children and Youth Services, under the Liberal government. He got that government dough. So I guess there's three ways an investigative journalist in the media party could go. I mean, you could dig up dirt on those few charitable directors who dare to say, yeah, maybe it wasn't a good idea to shovel that charitable money to Trudeau. Maybe we should, get that money back to the actual charities. You could do that. You could dig into the charities who bizarrely offered him the money in the first place, like that orphanage charity, and ask whether it wasn't Liberals like Kathleen Wynne and Mark Holland and Alan Rock and David Dodge and Bernard Shapiro who steered him the money in the first place as a political favor. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but you think it might be worth asking? Or you could do what most media party types did, just snooze through the whole thing. Can you imagine if Justin Trudeau actually became Prime Minister? I mean, it's tough to believe you could go head-to-head at a G8 meeting with the likes of, say, Vladimir Putin. God forbid it actually comes to that.